Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Uh, we're here at Catharsis again on the purple velvet couch. I got my man Moose here with me as usual,
How's it going?
and we were just sitting in my garage talking about all sorts of stuff. So this might be an episode on like uh, a series of digressions,
Yeah.
but it all kind of rolls back to consciousness or universe. Not like we're masters or professionals on all that stuff. It's just interesting information to talk about.
Yep. We're gonna
And
have a discretion session.
yeah, and Joe was asking me some weird questions in the garage, so I thought I'd just bring us into the living room here and hit record. So
Right on.
what were we just talking about in there?
Okay, so we were talking about unity of consciousness and and what potentially happens with death. So my question to you was, and I had a breakthrough because
Okay, let's hear it.
I don't want to name drop, but a person that we follow and read their books and stuff had an extraterrestrial experience and has memories of past lives on other planets. So being that we are only energy, vibration, and
I think you
frequency.
should name drop. That's Billy Carson, by
That's
the way,
Billy Carson, yeah.
and you guys should at least listen to what he has to say.
Yeah,
But anyway,
absolutely.
go ahead,
Yeah.
Moose.
So he says that he has these memories, right? And so what I was going to ask was, when we die, that's our next step in life. Like it's just transcending and leaving this third dimensional body. But what happens is our this consciousness or this energy, frequency, and vibration is transferred and can be transferred clear across the galaxy. Because I was
It's already there, by the way.
oh, because I was wondering if we were like, because the entity that rules this planet is evil, clearly. So there's a duality. Right now, we live on a planet that is literally ruled by Enlil, and he's Satan, as you know, as much as we know. So that means outside of this planet has to be light, has to be the other side of that duality, right?
Right, but I also think on this planet there has to be that too.
Okay.
Because uh, there are evil forces, we'll say, the evil empire that's running the planet for financial gain or whatever personal gain, and who knows, they might even be sleaze
Prolonged
stacks.
life.
But what I can say is the majority of the human beings on planet Earth, we make up about 8 billion people, and there's really only about 100 families running the planet. So
Fair.
so we have the numbers. What we're lacking is a consciousness.
Right.
Because we, like you were just about to go back into death and dying again. That's relating and referring to a physical body, and
Mhm.
that really, this, Joe. All you are is a consciousness,
Right.
and the only thing that exists is energy, frequency, and vibration. There's really no such thing as matter.
So therefore, this consciousness that we are,
That's it.
it's
That's
already
evolution.
there. You're right, because it runs parallel at the same time. You're right. You're right. You're right. I think I got lost in the thought that the next step could eventually just be like currently, because people say like we're living in hell, like this is current hell. So you know
Yeah,
we
I almost see it as an incubation. If you look at the way human
uh,
beings interact, they're like humans just learning to crawl. You
right.
know, and I'll use this metaphor or analogy here to explain that. Like, imagine if all these multidimensional beings are relatives are up, just kind of looking down on Earth, right?
Mhm.
Going, oh yeah, no, they're part of us. I can't wait for them to join, the universe and have this unity, and we can all be one. But meanwhile, they're looking down on Earth, going, okay, each country has 4,000 missiles aimed at the other country. Everyone's running around in separation. Everyone fucking hates each other.
Mhm.
They're destroying the trees, the oceans.
Mhm.
They're destroying their own planet. We're not going down there with those idiots.
Right.
They got to come up here. They're not ready. Imagine
Yeah.
if you were trying to visit Earth and you were from, the Pleiadian star system,
Mhm.
and you pulled up and you got your binoculars out and you'd just be
We're
going,
just an underdeveloped
they,
civilization.
I would just kind of be going, I don't want to go there. Look at these fucking idiots.
Right.
Everyone's at each other's
Well, we're
throats.
still like pretty much apes in our evolution as much as they would, to
Right.
put it
So that's an
lamely.
like I said, that's in my opinion, that's an evolutionary process where and I'll quote Billy Carson, it's like we're like just learning to crawl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not on it as on a physical level, that's our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the egg has been cracked open,
Right.
and that's
We're
what
finding
evolution is your consciousness evolves, not your physical body. That's where people get it wrong, and based on my research, those are my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Not just my opinion. What evolution of mankind really means, in my opinion, is the evolution or ascension of your consciousness,
Right.
because that's all there is.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I don't believe that we came from apes and shit. Like,
no,
right. Like we were
there
fucking
are
fish
relatives,
and stuff.
but like as far as our evolutionary chain, and we can get into this with the Anunnaki tinkering with our DNA.
Right, that's
and
what
all-
I was gonna get
all-
into.
Well, we can then.
Let's do it.
So I mean,
But this is also going to bring some sadness along with it.
um, depending on who's out there listening and who believes what, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's we'll say elevating your consciousness can be an excruciating. It's not this happy, blissful awakening.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be excruciating because there's a burden of knowledge now,
Right.
and you have to act on it.
Painfully aware.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But going back to like
The genetic tinkering.
our physical evolution, I mean, way back in the day, and this was hundreds of thousands of years ago, there were hominids on this planet. Those were our cousins,
Right.
so to speak. And I believe we were, I don't know if we were apes. I don't really know what we look like, but like, again, our consciousness couldn't have been as high as it is now, and it ain't even high. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there was a period based on Darwin and all the books you read, all the lies that you read about evolution in school.
Well,
There was a period, a 30,000 year period, where all of a sudden we were like hominids,
Mhm.
basically just cavemen, and then all of a sudden made this huge
evolutionary
biological leap to where
Mhm.
like our frontal lobe was now bigger. And again, someone had to have tinkered with our DNA, because like that takes millions of years to evolve into that,
Hmm.
not 30,000. But
Mhm.
there was this blank period, and then all of a sudden, humans had cognitive reasoning. They had a frontal lobe, so now like that's kind of like the orchestrator of your brain. That's your imagination. That's where your ideas come in, and
Mhm.
your thoughts and opinions.
Huh. Okay, so this brings up my question with the genetic tinkering. So what they did was messed with us in a way that when they came down here, they like the Anunnaki, Enlil and Enki, and when they came down here and they decided that they were going to basically turn us into cattle, and we were going to work for them and do and become higher consciousness slaves, exactly.
Yeah.
So they mated with us or whatever and all that good shit. So that's what created giants or the Nephilim, and which is completely like another topic. But I'm digressing on this digression.
Yeah, this is the digression
Session. Yeah.
session. Nice. The digression session.
Yeah, that's right. I like it.
But go on, and we'll get into the Nephilim here in a second, because I have an explanation for that.
So here's where my sadness part comes in. It's because we know that we were genetically tinkered with. So we were genetically tinkered in a way.
Sorry to interrupt. Most people would never believe that. So we know. We're saying we know.
To the listeners out there,
99.9% of people don't know, and they won't believe you.
Right. Yeah. Well, to
And
those
all-
1%ers.
All I can say is look it up, be your own researcher, and be very discerning with information. Don't just consume information.
Yeah, don't listen to what I have to say. Look it up.
Go down the rabbit hole. Yeah, we're not. Our intentions are not for you to believe us.
Mm-hmm.
If it's interesting to you, look it up.
Yeah,
it's all right there. I looked it up.
Yeah, this is. I didn't just shit this information. It was
How
researched.
could you? It's
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is.
You know, I'm a recovering Catholic, and
Yikes.
I found, yeah, exactly. I found another path in life that, you know, I believe my beliefs to be true, and did the research, and I suggest everybody else does it
And
as well.
is still doing it.
Is
It's
still
an
doing it.
ongoing thing, by the way.
It's a lifetime thing. I
But
think.
back to the genetic altering of
Okay, so my
hominids.
sadness part. So
They
they made
came
the hominids, turned us into slaves, genetically tinkered us, made us smarter, and then, but not smart enough. So like you just mentioned few minutes ago about imagining extraterrestrial beings like kind of staring at us from space and
laughing and just going, what a bunch
Exactly.
of losers. I'm not going to associate myself with that yet.
so it's not far out of reach to think that they would be able that. So what happens is we can't see certain dimensions. You know, we're physically incapable of seeing
No, and that
certain
goes
frequencies.
for frequencies and colors,
Exactly, frequencies, and
infrared,
colors,
ultra blues.
all of that. Right.
Yeah.
So now, all these multiple dimensions,
Magnetism.
all these multidimensional beings, could be fucking right in front of us. They are already here. They've already fucked with us. They're already visiting us.
Absolutely.
And we
I would
can't
say they
see them.
are.
Right.
And I definitely know there's several of them watching this planet because the
Right.
consequences of this planet have severe consequences to the balance of the universe.
And-
They have to make sure everything goes okay
Right.
because they've already had galactic wars.
Well, this is why we have
you
a
know, and-
galactic government. We have a space force in our military. That's weird. I thought aliens didn't exist, right? Supposedly. Well, now they can't dispute that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't trust anything coming from the government. You know, I
Exactly.
would just, again, discern my own information, find it, and, discern it. But
And, yeah,
you know,
do your research.
I think we talked about this before. Like the Great Pyramid of Giza, underneath that is the halls of Amet,
Mm-hmm. Amut or something? Amet?
Amenti, halls of Amenti,
Oh.
and the entrance to that pyramid is NASA owns the rights to that. That's
Right.
something to think about.
I think
Why are they interested in that? But again, look it
Well,
up.
did you know? So, I forget the dates, but it was sometime in the early 1900s or late 1900s. So redo your research. I forget the dates, but NASA was actually doing research in our oceans for like 7 years or something like that, and then all of a sudden, bam, like everything came to a screeching halt, and NASA started exploring space. So whatever the fuck we found in our oceans, that NASA decided whatever it is that they found, they decided, okay, well, we need to figure out a way to get the fuck off this planet. And who knows? But
and
now,
that's just the information you know about it.
right.
So imagine what other
Imagine what the
important
people who
information is there.
work there now.
Because the oceans are the least discovered part of this earth.
Right.
You
yeah.
know, and partly because humans like scuba or whatever on air nitrox can only really get down to 300 feet, and that's just basically the surface of the ocean.
Yeah.
You've got to take these little pressurized vessels down there, and it's really like not good on the human body.
People are dying.
And just the pressure under there.
Yeah.
I mean, but you make the point. They can go into space. There's probably a technology there to at least send a camera down, or in certain places. I mean, you got to consider that the oceans are 3/4 of the planet. Like that's where most of the surface area is.
Yeah, that's where most
are the
life
oceans,
is.
and nobody knows anything about it.
Right. Exactly.
So
Nothing.
I would be careful what you believe about it at that point, because they're probably not going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So now here you go again,
Mm-hmm.
being your own researcher,
Yep. And go
discerning
down
your
your
own
own rabbit hole.
information. So that's the habit we want all of our listeners to form: is be your own researcher,
Right.
and don't be afraid to go down the rabbit hole. Discern all the information. I'm a cynic. Moose is a cynic.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to convince me, but I'm just slowly putting puzzle pieces into a 5,000 piece puzzle, and like that's where I get my answers.
Trying to make a clear picture. 'cause
I look
think
it up and I
everybody's a
discern.
liar. Yep.
At some point, and
At some
that's going to be a podcast soon, and is why most human beings lie. And
Mhm.
all of you out there listening are liars.
Yep.
Admit it and embrace it, because we all are.
I myself,
you know.
everybody.
So we'll enjoy that. But yeah, it's interesting. Wherever you are in the world, there's this movement, or there might be this movement of spirituality or wokeness or consciousness, and everyone kind of goes that direction. You've got self-help guys and Tony Robbins and cheerleaders and all that stuff, and everyone kind of shelves ancient civilizations, the history of this planet. And I think that's relevant information to if you want to become a more conscious person,
right,
more present, you have to know the history of where you came from.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about are people who are fake woke.
Well, I never got jived with that term woke, because it just comes across as a quick, easy fix. Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a pop psych term, like you're more elevated and conscious. And when you look into these so-called woke people, from my scope, they're the most asleep, unconscious people. They're just drastically hypocritical and completely like insecure.
Yeah, this is why I said it.
Like, you don't just get woke, and you know this, Joe. You got to not only read, you got to read till you're dead. You got to keep going. The rabbit hole has no back door. Once you keep going, and you don't just one day go, oh, I got it, I'm woke now.
No,
it's a process.
This is why I said this, because people who walk around are
It's
like,
a
oh,
load
well,
of
I'm
shit.
woke and this, that.
Yeah.
This is called, I call it fake woke. It's like,
I
all
call
these
it
people
hypocrite.
who walk around and do all this shit. Well, it's also
America,
like the politically correct term right now.
Right, but we have to
bullshit.
label everything.
Right.
And I bet you anything that term probably came out of Hollywood or some cheesy pop culture American place like that. And it's just a dumb label, and it's a misnomer. It really, that word comes out of unconscious people's mouths,
Yeah.
And it's like yoga. Oh, I do yoga. You did yoga 1 week. You don't do yoga. You got the mat and the tights and the camel toe, but you did yoga, but you don't do it.
Right.
You quit last year, remember?
Yeah.
And it's that same kind of immediate gratification human behavior, where it's like you read a book or two and you all of a sudden, okay, I got it. Well, there's no finish line to woke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no end goal. You don't get it. It's a ongoing continuation, and it gets harder.
You don't like that term?
I wouldn't like it if someone said, "Oh yeah, what Robert talks about, the podcast is about awareness and consciousness."
Yeah.
If someone said, "Oh, hey, Robert's woke," I would go, "Hold on there.
Yeah.
Don't ever call me that.
Yeah.
I'll explain what I am, what I think I am." I would consider myself an alchemist.
Right.
And a pragmatist. I want to see what the information on a human being is about, and I want to know how to apply it.
Right, exactly. That's why we do this practice.
And serve my planet. Like, I don't have a nefarious reason for it.
Well, so this is a practice. This is why I think, people call this politically correct term.
I don't like that term either.
I think it's crap, you know what I mean?
That's
but
another
this is
pop
why I
culture
said it's like
sector.
fake woke, all these, this big fucking fake term, this big fake entity that all these people think that they got this shit figured out when they really don't. And,
so what in
in
this culture in the United States isn't fake? There's your answer.
Right.
So it's just another thing they grinded out, to kind of keep the people separate. He's woke, she's not.
Right.
Once you put a label on something, you either are or you aren't.
Separation.
And it's not up to a government to decide that or whatever.
Right.
And furthermore, your journey towards, we'll call it ascension, consciousness, is an individual thing.
Right.
It isn't defined by a label, because it's a personal thing. You know what I mean? So, like, that's another problem I have with it. Don't put me into that group of woke people, because I'm not.
Right.
That is not my label. You know what I mean? And God forbid, I'd never want that label, because I don't want to attach my consciousness to those idiots that willfully and are stoked to call themselves woke.
Right.
Because it gives them an escape. Now they don't have to further examine their own lives. They've got the answer, right? I'm woke now. I don't have to dig deeper into myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now they're done. The game's over. I won. I'm better than those people.
I hear you.
You know, that's just how my take on it. You know?
Yeah, I like this take. I hear
You know, I think they meant well, but it was again meant to kind of separate people on a certain level.
Well, I appreciate your candor.
Yeah.
That's a
Anytime.
yeah, anytime.
I mean, I'm just gonna tell you straight how I feel. You know, my belief system.
I like it. Okay, so I was asking you about this all started with the genetic tinkering, and then it went down this other rabbit hole.
Right.
So like we were saying, there is no end to the rabbit hole. It's
No.
just a series of other shit that you find out, and then you research that, and then you go down that hole, and then another hole, and it all ties together. So everything is everything.
It's entangled, just like the universe.
Just like the universe. Exactly.
Yes.
So when this one blows, so you were saying NASA has something underneath Giza, right?
They own the rights to get
Okay, so let me ask
Billy Carson's been to the halls of Amenti several times.
Yeah.
You could not fly over there and go in there.
Well,
there's no way.
So check this out. So there was just this archaeologist who had discovered dinosaur bones from 2,000 years ago. And so scientists and all these people are saying they're millions of years old and all this shit, right? But dino and saur come from two Latin words, and it means death and lizard, or source or something, and so, or giant and lizard, excuse me. So that was the only thing that they could relate it to or as. So what I'm getting at is there's this archaeologist trying to dispute that dinosaurs were millions of years ago and were more so thousands of years ago. And what poses that question is, how do you think, we moved giant fucking stones across the desert?
I can answer that question. But back to the dinosaur thing, right now where I'm sitting, I would call it bullshit.
Yeah.
Until I did the research.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did not do too much research.
What I wanted to ask you was where did he find these bones? What part of the planet?
I didn't read that much.
And he's saying either 2,000 years or 100,000 years.
It was like it was like 2 or 3. Oh yeah, no, excuse me. It was roughly right around the time that the pyramids were built. That was supposedly 2,000, 3,000 years ago, right? 2,500 years ago.
They say 3,000. It's 30,000.
30,000.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're way off on that one.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can go into Göbekli Tepe, which they just unburied, and they're totally trying to keep that under wraps because it's like 70,000 years older than the pyramids, and they don't have an answer for it.
Right. And then there's also the Sumerian tablets.
They're everywhere. Mm-hmm. The Nazca lines, like you can't really see those anywhere but from space. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't hide the pyramids. So they gin up a story and put it in your 6th grade history book, and they write the narrative. Right. It's bullshit.
Huh.
You know?
Yeah.
They don't. Like I went to school. They never mentioned Angkor Wat. They never mentioned Borobudur. You know, I lived on the west coast of in California at that time, so you couldn't hide Tikal and Palenque and all those Mayan temples, which were built by the same person that built the pyramids. But
yeah, that's right. You're right.
You know, but like you couldn't hide those either.
Mm-hmm.
So they just drum up a story and people again consume the information and they don't discern the information and they believe it.
Yeah.
And getting them to believe otherwise is next to impossible.
Right.
You know.
Well, there's no disputing that we had, animals and shit that were of grand scale like that. There is no.
So, if you want me to explain that, so it's basically all it is astrophysics. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you look at the size of the planets that people came from, right? And let me explain this. So Mars is a much smaller planet than Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So on a 10 scale, we'll put Earth at a 5. Mars would be at like a 3. So based on gravity, like if humans like us, 6-foot humans, 5'8" to same size as we are now, if we went to Mars, the gravity's different. That's a smaller planet. So what are you, 5'8"?
Yeah.
You could go to Mars and pick up a boulder the size of this couch
Right.
because you're on an astrophysics level and a gravitational level larger than what fits what's normally on that planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the same goes back to your question with the Nephilim
Right.
and the Anunnaki. Their planet was 6 to 8 times, and this was the Pleiadian star system. Pleiads is where they came from, some of them. And there was, so the term Anunnaki is a term, it's not a race. There was, like if you look at the Bhagavad Gita and the Indian scripts and stuff like that, their gods were blue-skinned, and there were charcoal-skinned. So Anunnaki isn't one particular species. It's kind of like humans.
Right.
You know, you might be from Chicago or this guy's Mexican, and that's kind of what the term Anunnaki covers, all of those species.
Right.
But anyway, their planet, which was Nibiru in the Pleiadian star system, they had a giant galactic war, and shit blew up, and you know they came here, they came anywhere searching for a new planet, and they kind of found Earth to rehabitate, but like they came from a planet proportionally that was 6 to 8 times bigger than ours, so they get to Earth. The average human back then came up to their thigh bone,
Right.
so they were way bigger than us.
Right.
And due to astrophysics and gravity, they could come onto a planet smaller than theirs and lift cars up with their pinkies, because they were so used to, like, their cars or their rocks were way bigger.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all proportional. It's basic astrophysics. That's all it is. You know, and the Nephilim was an offshoot of the Anunnaki. So again, we could say the Anunnaki were experimentalists. So they started crossbreeding with us.
Right, and that's how they created the Nephilim.
And kind of like, you know, you have birth defects or inbreeding birth defects with human on human. The Nephilim were the less than perfect giants. And so you've heard the myth of Cyclops and stuff, this giant with one eye.
Yeah.
That's what was happening, and those were Nephilim. And they were part Anunnaki, which were, we'll say, 15 feet, 18 feet tall, half Anunnaki, half hominid, Homo sapien sapien.
Right.
And over time, when you crossbreed a giant with a person that's 6 feet tall, over time the person shrinks, right? Say after 10,000 years, now they're only 10 feet tall. Yeah. And then over time, it's us.
That's a thought.
Yeah. But that's how you explain movement of large objects. The precision's a whole different thing. That's technology that was a million years more advanced than what we even can fathom right now.
Yeah, you're right. I put that part of all this knowledge to the side for a quick second, because it's not too far. Like you said, they're trying to cover up Göbekli Tepe.
They have to.
Right. So they're covering up like all this shit, religion, like as much as they can. They're trying to cover it all up. So who's not to say that they're fucking lying about how old those dinosaur bones really are?
Well, why do you think I said it's a crock of shit? I won't believe that story.
Yeah.
And you could go to any museum in any country, and they'll have a dinosaur bone, erected. Doesn't mean it's real.
Huh. Oh yeah.
You know, I could write that story. You know, I could make a bone. I mean, I used to be a taxidermy artist. I could make a femur bone that would convince you it would look real to you, and I could dust it up and make it look 5 billion years old.
Son of a bitch.
And all those people that believe in that dinosaur story, have they ever seen it in person?
None of us have.
Right. So why do people believe it? Just consume that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, this is why I asked it as a question. Yeah. What do you think?
That's my take on it. You know, so I guess you could call this session "Be Your Own Researcher and Discern Your Own Information," because that's what's going to start coming back to all of this is fucking look it up.
Look it up.
You know, and I started to, and it's a lot of work, but like it's super interesting, and you can't go back, and there's no final ending. It just keeps going and going.
Right. So these giants and shit like that we have, how late, you say, like, we know we're tens of thousands of years old. So here we are 30,000 years later after the pyramids and shit and Göbekli Tepe and all that. That's enough time. That's enough time to pass on. But
yeah, I would put that at 100,000 years and to the present.
Huh.
But I mean, there were Anunnaki on this planet 450,000 years ago, and that's where the story starts.
Right.
You know, you kind of have to understand that story to see where we're at 30, 40,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Fucking around with us.
yeah. And why they even showed up, and it was because their galaxy was exploding.
Right.
And
Resources
they
and shit.
they were just cruising around the universe to find habitable places, and and it wasn't just the Anunnaki. It was like the bar scene at Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
All these beings, you know, I mean, there was multiple planets that got destroyed in that battle, or I'm talking millions of years ago.
Right. And this is all information that was remembered. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and written down, you know, so that's, you know, we'll get into the Bible, a whole different place, but like that's what the whole purpose of the Emerald tablets and the Sumerian tablets, and that was Thoth. Thoth documented all that shit. And Lil, his brother, was the one that wanted to get rid of it because he wanted to rule this planet, which was Atlantis back at that time.
Well, he succeeded.
He did it as a psyop through religion.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
You know, and discrediting his brother, like basically projection. Every evil thing he did, he blamed Thoth. He blamed everything on his brother. So, again, sheepish mentality on these Homo sapien idiots, you know, believed him.
Right.
You know, so now all of a sudden, Thoth is the bad guy. Thoth is Satan. And Yahweh or Enlil is the God. And bow before me. And back to genetic engineering, one of the things the Anunnaki did was they injected a worship gene into our DNA as well. So when, you know, these giant beings come down to your planet, you drop on your knees and, oh my God, you know, there's my king. And that's where the control comes in.
Right.
Is when you instill a worship gene into Homo sapien, because the way the universe works, and you know, quantum theory is you are God. God is in you. It's not an external thing,
right?
You know, and it was just a
we all carry it.
It was a psyop, you know, and that's how the races were created and languages were created. It was just a complete separation, and that was another tinkering of the DNA, where Enlil had all it took was 2% variation in your chromosome, your DNA, to create a Chinese race, an African American race, a white race, and that's what they did, and they just kind of exiled and separated everyone throughout the planet, and confused them with language.
Yeah, and
basically, when they created the races, it was a branding, like just like cattle, they branded us. There's the white ones, there's the black ones. Inky, you own these. Enlil, you own these. You know, this Anunnaki owns these, and you're going to be over in China. Here's your brand. And it was just branding, just like branding cattle.
Right. So that's
what they did.
I got another one for you, and I know it's going to say. I already know what your answer is going to be. But
well, I'll try to shock you.
Okay, cool. So, not to get too deep into religion, because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole at all.
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't want to do any of that. But so what he says is, Thoth left, and so the planet Nibiru, right? You said it exploded or whatever. I think Billy Carson believes it's still in its orbit, right? That we call it.
Well, a chunk of it got wiped out by an asteroid.
Right, and so now it's
same
still
thing
in
that happened
orbit,
to Earth.
But its orbit only passes by Earth every 36,000 years. So around this time, you know, we think that, you know, Enlil's been in complete rule of the planet.
The Pleiadian star system is a completely different star system than ours.
So there's another planet then that they are inhabiting, that the Anunnaki are inhabiting. They call it, I can't remember the name.
Well, it was Nibiru.
This is okay. And
but that's the Pleiadian star system.
It's in our star system. This is coming directly from Billy Carson. So, but I know you're going to say do further research on it.
Well, that might be true. I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah. So he.
I didn't know how far they were, because I'll go into a minute like how Earth was created, our star system.
Right. Okay. Cool. I want to know that, because I haven't done that part of this research. But what he was saying was that, and like I said, not to get too much into it, like how he believes that they might be one and the same. So this big disappearing that he did.
Who might be one and the same?
Jesus.
And Thoth.
And Thoth
Okay,
might be one and the
ahead.
same.
Yes.
So Enlil is now in rule of the planet. Thoth left. He went back to his planet. And he's traveling. And they say he will be back. He is one with man. This is exactly what Thoth used to say. And this is also what Jesus said. I am the same. I am as man and blah, blah, blah. So I don't want to get too deep into it.
Right.
Anyways, so he's this planet, and this has been proven by physicists and shit, that we have a planet that actually is still in our I don't know what the name of our sun, but in the Milky Way, and it orbits our sun, and it's on this huge, wide oval, and it only comes around and near any of these planets like Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, how we have our solar system, every 36,000 years, which would make sense. Right about that time is the pyramids and all that shit. Mm-hmm. So when he left, this is when, over the last 36,000 years, we've been in control, or Enlil has been in control of this planet. And we're supposedly waiting on this big fucking return, right? Well, that's going to be Thoth when, it makes its revolution, because they can only transfer between planets through the technology, the fucking pyramids. And by the way, and zip to and use that as like a portal or whatever, or some sort of transportation to make it to that planet. So when it gets close enough, but it can't otherwise, I think, is
right.
how he
No, I
put
understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think it's always important that we humans remember 5,000 years to Thoth is nothing. That's a week to him.
Right.
I mean, that's a billion lifetimes to us,
To us, yeah,
so
exactly.
like Thoth leaving Earth for 10,000 years is probably like a weekend getaway way to him,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy that's eternal, and we are all eternal because we're energy light beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're not physical or made of matter. But yeah, so at any moment he could come, or he could never come. He won't, maybe not come for another 5,000 years, because on his time frame, I mean, this is a dude that or his brother ruled Egypt for 30,000 years. Like, these guys don't die.
Right. This is exactly what I'm saying. So now get this. We have modern day technology that can tell us how long it'll take for that planet to get near enough in orbit for him to transport. So it's not far out of the realm to think we know when that will happen.
Yeah, that's possible, and that would require research, more space research. That's another couple puzzle pieces right there for sure.
For sure.
And that's a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I can tell you is the vibration of this planet is raising right now, and it has to do not with the humans, but what's going on in our solar system.
Yes.
And, specific planets coming around at specific times that haven't come around for 10,000 years. And things like, I don't know the numbers or the dates.
Same.
But based on my research, there's a frequency, and you can see it in society now. Like, the old paradigms, the old systems, they're all crumbling right now. And this evil that you see is, in my opinion, desperation. Like, their worlds are crumbling. Like, religion is getting closer and closer to, that is a multi-trillion-dollar business. And they won't be able to pay the bills. But like, those systems are slowly, energetically not sustainable on this planet, because the vibration and the energy is raising. And those systems, what you see now, homelessness in LA and all these other places, the systems can't sustain themselves. They're crumbling. And it's not on a physical level, it's on an energetic level. The consciousness is raising. It can't sustain itself. So all these unconscious people they're not going to evolve to the next level. Remember, I said consciousness is evolution. They're going to get left in the dust. It's evolution. Certain species die off physically, but it's because of consciously they no longer serve a purpose.
But if all we are is energy, matter, and vibration, then that means when we die, essentially we have a soul or like a consciousness. I would imagine it as like a little orb. So like, let's say this little orb, it's got to go somewhere because it can't be destroyed.
Well, it's everywhere.
Right. So it just absorbs.
Yeah, I mean,
or dissipates.
I kind of see,
but then there's no
humans orb. Like the entire universe is like this cosmic soup made up of particles, this dust, and it's in the Anunnaki, it's in us, it's in the planets, it's the whole deal. That's the connectedness.
I see.
So that's where it is. And
we're talking subatomic. So yeah, I guess we would just.
We're made out of the same stuff the Anunnaki were, and the planets. I mean, you got to understand the stuff that made you and me has been in this universe for billions of years.
Right.
This isn't just your first go around, And I don't know if you want to call that reincarnation, but like there is no such thing as death. Death, when you look at it through physics,
it's like
it's not possible. But
right.
People equate that to the physical 3 dimension because really all you are is that consciousness. I mean, all a human being is anyway is their nervous system. That's where everything is stored. Your body's just this bag of shit, like a TV console.
If we're going into the nervous system, what about the pineal gland?
Well, that's part of it.
So when we can enter and access a pineal gland, we can enter and access these other dimensions. So this genetic tinkering that's been done to us and all this cosmic soup and all this shit that we're made out of is made out of the same shit that they're made out of. It's also not far out of the realm to think that we could access that in this 3rd dimension.
Absolutely.
And we do that through meditation. But how could we? Is it possible to think that we could live there? Or is that genetic tinkering holding us back? So we're like right on that threshold because we're consciously aware that we can do these things, that our bodies are capable of these things, and that these dimensions exist. But we can't physically see them because of this genetic tinkering that has been done to us thousands of years ago. So let's say at some point in time, through meditation and stuff like that, you access these glands, which people have done. People have proven to have supernatural experiences, supernatural strength, supernatural healing, all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
So if every person on Earth had this, could that genetics be re-tinkered? Could we through meditation fix those parts of our DNA?
Absolutely.
And allow us to transcend into what other people, for lack of a better term, godlike beings, I guess.
To me, it's simply remembering who you are and keeping in mind your energy based. So the more you become energy, the less matter you become matter. You're connected. Look, every human being, there's like 1 billionth % matter in every human being. It's all energy.
But then that almost puts a statement like that the matter is controlled or the matter is conscious. So like when you, let's say not die, but when your body leaves the 3rd dimension, this controlled state, even though it's a cosmic soup, dissipates. But if it dissipates, I would imagine it would dissipate together. Like if it's controlled with a conscious, then this little like everything that we're made out of, like the tiny subatomic particles.
Right, not the physical, the
not
matter.
the physics, but the matter, matter of me that creates me.
Okay, go ahead.
When I pass away, when I leave this body, that matter that it leaves me, I would imagine would kind of stay together, like clustered. That would be like a consciousness of Moose, of Joe, and then and so like it doesn't necessarily just disappear into a million trillion little pieces, like throwing a handful of sand in the air and it just disappears.
No,
it would be like I threw that handful of sand in the air and it's chilling in one fucking ball, like a consciousness, almost like a little entity that could be zipped across the galaxy to another body in another race of alien or any, for lack of a better term, across a galactic thing. So there's a sense of control over that, right? Like,
and I would even say that that's the purpose in the 3 dimension. It's about learning that, because when you do die, your consciousness is a vibration and it can only go to a specific vibrational match. Like that's the order of the universe. And like people with low consciousness, low vibration, they have to repeat life on Earth in the 3rd dimension. And that's what ascension is.
Right.
Like when you can get into the 5D where the past, present, and future are all happening at the same time.
See, but what I want to do is walk that line in this body. You
can.
Yeah.
But that's the work. That's the practice. And I don't believe it can be done without meditation. I wouldn't say mastering of a meditation, but really understanding the intentions behind it and the various purposes for meditation, because that's how you can reconnect.
Right. I just
Go ahead.
just had a fucking epiphany. So what I've been hoping for this whole time, and I just had the epiphany, is I agree with you. Through this meditation, it's almost like leaving your body. Your consciousness would leave your body and it'd be like having an out-of-body experience. And you could enter the other dimensions, which is basically
Your
nothingness.
body's not you. You
Right.
have to remember that. Think of it as a
Right.
Think you're a TV,
Well,
and you have a broadcast,
yeah.
and you it's in this console, this wooden box. That's all your body is.
I know.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying. So
Right.
you would leave this body and you'd be conscious. This is my epiphany. But what I've been fighting this whole time is wanting to see it through these eyes, not through meditation, with my eyes closed and having an out-of-body experience, but being able to see the other dimensions, like through my personal eyes. But the genetic tinkering allows us to not see. Our eyes are incapable of seeing infrared, but there are animals who have slits in their eyes. There's only 3 types of animals: reptiles, cats, and this what the fuck was the other one? It was a weird kind of animal, I forget. Either way, so it's believed that they can see in other, like, infrared and shit like that, and at night, which lions or like certain cats can. Sorry, not big cats. Big cats have round eyes. Only domestic cats have slit eyes, which is another. So a feline and a reptile, which is like crocodiles and certain lizards and shit like that.
Sure.
So if our eyes could see infrared and other shit like that in other dimensions, if we could meditate and fix that genetic tinkering and that dysfunctionality in our eyes, then we could see these other multi-dimensional beings that are walking alongside of us.
So my response to that would be, when you start getting to those levels of consciousness, your 2 eyeballs are not what you see with. You see with your third eye, which is your pineal gland.
I knew it.
And that's what's connecting you. And you're downloading the information necessary to open up certain parts
Right.
of your brain to where now you perceive reality on a different level. Because
Okay.
these eyes, although they're your exterior 2 eyes, are absolutely part of your brain.
Right.
But your real eye, the eye that really sees, is your pineal.
Okay, so I got another one.
Okay.
So
That's how I would answer it.
I like that.
Okay.
So, because that brings me to this question, which I was going to bring up. So, with the pineal gland being your third eye, and you open that and you access that consciously awake, like walking through your day, like he does walking meditations,
Right.
opening and flooding that pineal gland where you're literally in that, like, extra dimension. And this could be done, through drugs. DMT, mushrooms, psilocybin, stuff like that access your pineal glands that are mind-expanding drugs. So it's not far out of the realm to say, people who might maybe microdose, open that pineal gland and go through their daily business. Now, I don't want to say I'm not condoning and taking DMT and stuff like that, but
I am.
okay, cool, me too then. Yeah,
Everyone should before they die.
okay, cool.
Ayahuasca trip, whatever, but
Fuck yeah,
why not?
yeah.
And I'm not sure that, like, it's the pineal gland that gets opened up through those. There might be other components of the brain
Right.
concurrently, not just one.
Yeah.
Because the pineal gland, it's like this little transducer that pops up, and you just start downloading information.
Mm-hmm.
And the more inward you go through meditations, your inner world is more real than your outer world.
Okay, well, I'll tell you something. I tripped so hard one time that I was like seeing through a wall, and I walked up to the window and saw the car that I was looking at through the wall. And I don't know, so that makes me think, like, when you trip like that, you get on another connection. You really connect with other people too. Like, if they're tripping as well, and 2 people are tripping, you can trip bond through like electromagnetic, like all of our frequencies and shit. They link, and then that's a forever link.
Yep.
So I highly recommend tripping with your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
it's interesting that we're talking about this, because the last time I ate a significant portion of mushrooms, like I found myself, I was just lying down looking into the sky, and all of a sudden I'm like going, let me try to see differently, like my depth of perception, instead of just staring off into space. I'm like going, let me see if I can see the molecules close up, you know. And after a while, I was seeing differently.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
It was like an exercise, like a gym exercise, where I was just like.
But when you're doing it, it's easy.
Well, I don't think it's possible without it,
right?
Because, like I said, there's, I think, different levels of your body that are more relaxed, but different doors, if you will, you know, different parts of your brain start working together, you know. And I think that's what things like psilocybin and DMT, they definitely do, is they allow you to shift this perception that you've had of the 3D world for so long to a whole different one, or at least give you the option to go that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I think that if you could master that, so if there was a way to take that exact portion of psilocybin that opens the pineal gland and take control of that trip and go, okay, this is what I'm going to decide to see, and boom, and see it. And like you did with your exercise. And I believe that when you're doing that and you're tripping like that, that there's not that weird ego or that like insecure, like, oh, I might not be able to do this, or that never even occurs.
Your awareness is nowhere near that.
Right. It's
not
like
on you.
You're like, I'm doing it. Like, oh, hey, look, you know, like that thought occurs, and then the action just happens. So like people who, like, this brings me back to like people like mothers who have picked up cars off their child. It's not a thought. It's that they tapped into that right then and there. If we could tap into seeing through walls.
That's visualization. You're just gonna do it with 100% belief system behind you. That speaks to how powerful humans are.
Right. And
you know. And that goes back to the genetic tinkering and, you know, conditioning and programming humans to.
So how dumb were we? Were we a dumb species before the tinkering, or were we an advanced species before the tinkering?
We were hominids. So basically, the Anunnaki and other beings that came here, technologically, were light years ahead of us.
Well, yeah.
So to them, we were like lizards.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when they first came here, they didn't even fuck with us. They would they just kind of looked at us like lizards or ants. And the first Anunnaki 400,000 years ago brought their own slaves.
Well, I'm not saying that we were fucking hominids, or like that we were like a genius species, but we could write and fucking document and had plumbing, and or not plumbing, but like had like a system, like they had a riverway system. Gobekli Tepe. You know what I'm saying? Like, those fuckers were smarter than we're.
Yeah, but that Gobekli Tepe happened when there was already Anunnaki intervention.
You're right.
You know, so we went from.
We're talking 400,000+ years ago.
Right. So the way it goes, so the Anunnaki brought their own slaves. They were known as the Ijiji.
Oh yeah.
They brought their own slaves, and the Ijiji could live to be 1,000 years. So they were.
That's right.
Yeah. So after about 400 or 500 years, the Ijiji were like, hey, wait a minute. What are we doing here? We're slaves to these people. And they had a revolt, an uprising. That's what gave way to humans. You know, so the Anunnaki said, okay, this isn't going to work. We're not going to import our own slaves from Nibiru or whatever. We're going to take these lizards, these hominids, our cousins.
Well, because the other people were like fighting against it, right? They became like it was like a civil war, right? Here on between the Ijiji.
Well, they revolted.
Right.
You know, and that was the first big flood or whatever when they washed the planet clean.
Yeah.
Is the Anunnaki ended up wiping them off.
Well, the belief is that when the Earth, when that planet comes by, it's got its own shift because it's such a big planet. When it comes by enough, it fucks with everything that happens on Earth. The like how they say the moon controls the tide. How close it gets to Earth, how far it gets away during our orbit, during the spin and all that shit is what affects our tides. Same thing when this fucking ginormous planet swings by every 36,000 years. Our fucking planet flips.
Who knows? I mean,
this is the belief.
So you want to know how Earth was created? This is another trippy story.
I love it.
So this was in our, this is in our solar system. You know what? Okay, the Earth is the third rock from the sun, right? What is it? Mercury, Venus, Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So before there was Earth, the third planet from the sun was
Mars.
No, it was called Tiamat.
Tiamat. Oh yeah. Well, that's what's known as Mars today, right?
Nope.
No.
So Tiamat was a planet almost twice the size of Earth, and it was known throughout the universe or the galaxy as this euphoric Eden. Everything was perfect, lush trees, waterfalls, everything you can visualize as paradise. And it got hit by an asteroid and basically ripped in half. And what was left was Earth, a livable environment, and it kind of just congealed over billions of years back into a circle. But it had a giant chunk out of it, and it was named Tiamat in the beginning. And back then, the neighboring planet, which was a moon at the time, was Mars. And when Tiamat got wasted by that asteroid, Mars was a livable planet as well. But when that asteroid hit, it shifted Mars's axis 45 degrees. So one side of Mars is just scorched because it got hit, and the other side was the livable side that just kind of dried up. And I don't know if they're telling this information out now yet, but when this cataclysmic event happened, Mars changed too because it went off its axis by 45 degrees. So imagine it being like this and just all of a sudden like that.
Right.
And that's what created our moon.
Mm-hmm.
We had two moons back then, or Tiamat did.
Okay. So I vaguely remember watching this one.
Sorry to interrupt, but you could see how vital it is for these other beings on other planets to make sure our planet, we don't fuck this planet up.
Yeah.
So they're watching us.
Because Tiamat was the fucking super highway spot. So check this out.
Eden. It was where everyone wanted to go.
There's proof that we had life on Mars. Like they have fucking proven it.
There was oceans and
there's buildings and structures and monuments and
civilizations.
fucking civilizations. Yeah, exactly. 100% there was. So
But it looked a lot more like our planet did. It wasn't just this red, dead dirt.
Right. And I think it got pushed, too. Not only just spun, but pushed. Like
a lot changed, and I don't know everything about it. I do believe that at one time Earth or Tiamat had two moons, and we either gained or lost one. And it's still possible that there's another moon orbiting this planet as well that they're not talking about.
Right behind our moon.
Yeah. I just think there's a little bit more information out there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But based on like the more I read, the more I research, I'm like going, well, then this has to happen, and this is the gnarly part about this is now we need a brief understanding of astrophysics. Now we got to understand quantum mechanics, and that's what this whole process is. I love it and I'm never going back, but it's anything but blissful. Right. It's a burden, in my opinion, and it's excruciating because like I just keep going and it's super fascinating to me.
Me too.
But I think
that's the pleasure of it.
But it is elevating your energy and your consciousness as well, because isn't that remembering? And that's the goal. Mm-hmm. That's what meditation is to become refamiliarize yourself with yourself, with the universe. You're part of it, and everything's entangled. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the journey in like the 3-dimension. Like it's supposed to be this imperfect, fucked up scenario because it's about learning how to ascend and learning not to react and learning to be present and learning not to, when you hate another person, that person is an example of a part of you, and understanding that, you know, and that's not so easy, because we've all been born, whether you thought you had good parents or not, your environment is what set those programs in action. And, I can bet your parents didn't know this information and their grandparents didn't. Mm-hmm. So you got to take some time to remember too, even if you had the Leave It to Beaver childhood, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where mom and dad were great and they were in love and you had but you still aren't you.
Yeah.
You just didn't have the information. So therefore your consciousness and your vibration is no different than the poor kid. Mm-hmm. His is probably a little bit lower because you've been beaten down, didn't
Or-
have a dad, or something like
One
that.
had to think for himself.
But
So I
I
believe
mean,
that the
one
poor guy
degree of
has
separation.
it better,
Well,
consciously.
And I agree with that, and it's based on I got nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm already dead.
I'm already I'm already fucked. Who gives
I'm
a
already dead. I got nothing to lose. You are still under this illusion that your parents fed to you.
shit? Or that they give a shit about you, or
Right.
maybe they do.
Well, even if they do,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that come from actually really healthy, loving families, but there's no way their parents had this information.
Right.
Their parents believed or were taught or programmed that 98% of your DNA is junk DNA, and they still believe it. They believe in the Lord and go to church.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they were loving, great parents, but that's your program, homie. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's a bullshit. It's all a lie.
It's all a lie.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a,
Like
this,
the moon landing.
yeah, this whole experience on Earth is about unlearning, in my opinion. It's about unlearning all the shit since you came out of the womb and even before.
Yeah.
Because it transcended your parents and your grandparents.
Yeah.
Pretty wild thoughts, but this is what I believe. I mean, I don't call them opinions. This is what I believe based on the information I looked up and read. I took the time to do it, and like I told you, I didn't seek out quantum physics or astrophysics or ancient history. It found me, and I couldn't walk away from it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I really wanted to go down this hole, but like it kind of nudged me in this direction, and it was like, no, it's a yes. You're not saying no to this.
Well, same thing happened to me. I was searching.
It's almost like a
for
responsibility, right? Like you
Yeah.
owe it to yourself to know who the hell you are.
Right. So
Right?
I was on that fucking journey myself, looking for answers, and just the universe responded, and this is what it sent me.
So you can't say no, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, imagine I don't know what you'd feel.
You ever had,
if you just went, nah, I'm going to stay unconscious.
I don't think many people fucking look and hope for something so dearly that when it is in front of their face, they recognize it. And I think you and I were fortunate enough to have that feeling or that trust in this to go through with it.
Yeah, I think that goes back to surrender because,
Yeah.
At least in my experience, there was events in my life where I just went my way's not working. Okay, I'm willing to listen now.
Yeah.
That's an ego drop, right? You know what I mean? And I don't think people, let me put it this way. I mean, the people out there, the unconscious soulless avatars, will fiercely defend the very system that enslaves them because the alternative is the truth. They fucking don't want it. And it's not the truth like I talked about you earlier. It's about what are you going to do now that you know the truth that terrifies people.
Well,
you have to change.
Yeah.
You have to. And most people just go, You know what I mean? But some interesting thoughts. I wish we can go on. You got to take off?
Yeah, I do. I
All
gotta
right.
go in like 10
Thanks
minutes.
for listening, everyone. Sorry for our digressions, but I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting information.
I love it, dude.
And
I
it's just kind of
appreciate it.
scattered everywhere, and it kind of encompasses the same stuff, which is consciousness.
Yeah.
A little bit of lesson there on quantum mechanics, how the universe is,
A little lesson on those.
ancient civilizations, things like that. And Moose and I would encourage you guys to not believe us and look it up.
Yeah, do
It's
your
out
research.
there. But you guys got to find the information because you're not going to believe it from us.
That's right.
All right, folks. You guys have a good night.
As
Thanks
above,
for listening. As above,
so below.
so below.